Okay, I'm gonna let in our attendees.
All right, well, I see that it's 11 o'clock and our attendees are coming in from the waiting room. Welcome to our monthly virtual membership meeting. I'm Jeff Becker, your CAST chair, and excited to be here in 2022. You know, 2022 is starting off a lot like 2021 went, and we're continuing to work through all of those issues with keeping our kids in school and our staff in school and dealing with issues happening in the legislature and with the budget. So excited to bring you a good update today of the latest happenings. Again, welcome to our first time attendees in particular. And if you're a new member, please take an opportunity to introduce yourself in the chat. Make sure that you're messaging everyone there, but with that little drop down caret, we'd love to say hello to you. So again, please use that chat feature for that. And just a reminder for all of our attendees, you are muted. So if you do want to make a comment or have a question along the way this morning, please use that chat feature for that as well. And just a final reminder about the chat feature, please refrain from doing any marketing in there so we can keep that channel clear for communication with our members and presenters this morning. So if you take us to the next slide, please, Courtney. Many of you know by now, we do have a new CASH member portal on our website. So make sure that you're taking advantage of that. You can go in and set up a profile and access event handouts, manage your membership, make connections in groups with other folks that are in the CASH organization. I think it's a pretty cool feature. So if you do need assistance with that, you can email Aileen, and you see her email there on the bottom of the slide if you have any reason to get assistance for that. Again, a really cool feature of our new website. All right, well, let's get right into our updates this morning. The first presentation we have is from Kurt Cooknick with the Division of the State Architect. Really happy to have Kurt with us today. Kurt, if you join me up on screen here, we will turn it over to you and let you give us the latest happenings at DSA.
All right. All right, good morning. Thank you for the introduction, Jeff. I'm Kurt Cooknick. I'm the Deputy to the State Architect. Ida Claire. Ida is sorry that she could not be here today. She also serves on the California Commission on Disability Access, and she was needed over there as well. So she asked if I could sit in with her for her today and take over this responsibility, which I'm happy to do. So let's get to it then. First off, I wanted to let you know that our offices are still closed to clients, unfortunately, and it's just the environment we're in right now. We hope to work through it to ultimately get back to the point where we can see your shiny faces in our offices again at the back check counter or whatever reason you might want to come see us. But that's the way it is for right now, and we'll let you know as soon as we open up. So moving into this, we are hiring. We've got a lot of needs. I know everybody has a lot of needs, but these, what you see before you, are specific needs right now. So if you have anybody that wants to get into state service as a design professional, please point them in our direction. We're competing against the private sector as well, I know, but it's tough times. We need the help. So there's a plug. I know you said not to do that in the chat room, Jeff, so I'm doing it here. Okay. All right, so let's move into projects and plan review. This is what we're looking at so far. We're still running $800–900 million per month in plan review statewide. As you can see, December's been pretty busy for Oakland. They've got 30% of our workload. And then for January and February, it looks like San Diego. This is always looking like a horse race for us, watching which offices are getting the heaviest workload and trying to determine why, and then how we allocate our resources to those offices to make sure we keep up with the work. For those who don't know, it's worth repeating that DSA has 3 methodologies to accomplish its workload of plan review. We use existing staff, and overtime, and then we have consultants that we contract out to do plan review as well. And those are our methodologies for keeping up with our workload so that we don't cause delay on the construction side of things, because we're conscious of delay and what that means to escalation in construction costs. I've provided this information, and Ida's provided this in the past, and we do make it available to any of you. We have an amazing group in our metrics department who have all of our data, and we can slice and dice anyway and provide it to you if you had any specific reason that you wanted to know something about your area, where projects are, for understanding construction workload and what is going on with school projects in your area. So I encourage you to reach out to us if you ever have that need. We're happy to provide it. There's an upcoming tri-agency workshop. I don't know if Lisa's going to speak to that when she gets up here, or if Juan is on from CDE, but I encourage you all to participate in this. It'll be on each agency's website where to get the link for the Zoom webinar. It's February 3rd, as you can see. And I think it's well worth your time if you have an interest in TK and K facility improvements, especially. Some changes in the energy code here. This is not, we did a really nice job on the cooking, clean energy seminar that's available on our website still, but this is more with PV and electricity. So right now we're developing new IRs to respond to the changes in the regs from the code changes, specific to PVs. And then this one area I want to make sure you're keen on, Zone 1 and 16, which are Northern California coast and Sierra. Those 2 areas can meet dual feed requirements, which is gas and electricity, because they have special needs. This is the governor's push towards all electric. So we recognize that there will be some concessions for certain areas that cannot go all electric, and PVs don't always work for every area as well. So there are some allowances with gas. And this, I believe, an exception for other areas to allow for really cold days, but you would have to check with your zone to make sure that that's an allowable feature. Next slide, green rulemaking. I spoke about this when I presented back in October, before the rulemaking took place in December. Now it's passed through the Building Standards Commission, it's been approved. See the effective date. The takeaway here for you folks is that EV chargers are required to be installed for new parking areas beginning January 1st of 2023. So have your design professionals keep that in mind moving forward. Sure would hate to have that one fall off their radar, have you do some kind of either modernization or expansion or new construction, and then learn that you were supposed to put in EV chargers. So be aware of that. Access rulemaking changes. No really big changes here. We did some amendments to provide clarity on the existing requirements. However, there will be in the next rulemaking cycle requirements for adult changing facilities for modernization projects. The statutory requirements here go into effect 1/1/23, and wait, no, I misspoke. For the adult changing facilities, it goes into effect January of 2025, and the cautionary there for you is it could affect your performing arts centers. So be aware of that, and outdoor school sports facilities as well. So I would put this on your radar to make sure that your design professional stays abreast of these changes because they could have significant impact to you should it not be part of your design criteria and considerations. So next slide. Structural safety. This is the third leg of our stool here at DSA. Big change, the administrative code change here. 4 years of approval. So within 4 years of approval. So we're not going to float this out anymore. Extensions, they no longer apply, nor do you need to make the request for them. But construction must commence 4 years following approval. So be aware of that, okay? The 2022 building code, the repeal of the early adoption of mass timber, and we adopted the 2020 IBC requirements for mass timber. That it's important to note that is only for gravity use, not for lateral use, okay? I'm hopeful your structural engineer is well aware of that. However, we're not going to leave it there. In fact, I had a meeting this morning with LPA and Swinnerton. They're planning on pursuing a research grant this year to develop a prototype for a mass timber school building. I know this is an area that's keen to a lot of districts, and it's keen to the governor. It's keen to IDA because of sustainability. And so we'll be looking at what we can do to participate in the grant with LPA and Swinnerton to make cross-laminated timber, mass timber, a part of the building code in concrete, not just something to do on a one-off basis. Let's see here. Next slide would be, bear with me here. This particular slide is about maintenance, mostly for school districts, and be aware in your notes, if you take notes here, that this is something you'll have to also check with your local fire entity with whether or not they'll enforce these, because not all fire entities do. So we've got the requirements that you maintain an inventory of all your fire resistance rated construction, and that you also have the visual inspection annually. Again, this is a maintenance issue, so I think you might want to have your maintenance staff check with the locals to see what they're going to be enforcing as far as Chapter 7 goes. And then on Chapter 49, the wild urban interface fire areas, just be aware of these two changes here, that your landscaping within areas designated as very high fire hazard severity zones are to be fire resistant vegetation, and that those have to be maintained as they mature. Next slide. AB 306, employee and faculty housing, now law. We see some folks think that these projects don't have to come to DSA because they're public housing. Nothing's further from the truth. These should come to DSA. And regardless of your funding source for these, and I say that because we've seen this with a lot of the colleges and universities. If they have alumni who have given money to the campus for public housing, they believe that it doesn't have to come to DSA because it's privately funded, and you can't bifurcate funds. So these projects must come to DSA at all levels. They're public housing and they have to be reviewed by DSA under Chapter 11B. So be aware of that. Don't get yourself caught in a twist on this one. It could be very expensive, especially if you're sued for not meeting ADA requirements, right? Changes. We've got our project closeout and acceptance testing. So IRA 8 for our project inspectors. We've updated it to indicate what the PI should be collecting and providing to the owner, not to DSA. We don't want those forms. We won't take those forms. And they just go to the owner to hold on to, okay? And then what else can I tell you? So, we're big on initials here, and I don't know that we always explain that. So ATTCP, for those who don't know, is Acceptance Testing Technician Certification Provider. Those are your HVAC folks. Make sure that you get their forms, certificates, so that you can include that back to the owner. PIO, that's our Project Inspector Overview Program, training and certification. Again, same thing. Collect that data, give it to the owner, make sure the owner has it on hand in case they're asked for it later on for compliance purposes. And we talked about this the last time, and so you'll be experiencing it now. This is our new back check process. We used to just do back check in the office only. We do not do it that way. We're going to do it two different ways in a manner to expedite the entire process. So it's more of a QA/QC back check internally. That's the phase one. We'll do a desk review within the supervisors of each discipline and the staff, make sure that we've done our due diligence on it, and then we'll do the phase two in person with the design team, and hopefully that will make the process much more expedient for everyone. And right now we've got a few projects that are somewhat beta testing, if you will, and as soon as we've ironed out our process, we'll go live, but we do expect that to be within the next 2 months easily. All right. EB Task Force. This is our existing building task force. Some of you may be aware we had an interpretive reg, IR EB4, that's the rehabilitation required by costs, and the 50% building replacement value regulations. Right now, I have an RFP for consultants that I've sent over to our Office of Business Administrative Services that they're reviewing so that we can get consultants to help us develop our requirements for rehabilitation by costs. And we've established a task force. You can see the intent, the goal, and we hope to have this done relatively soon, because we understand what it means for districts to have these projects and evaluations and the costs associated and how it affects them. This is what our task force timeline looks like here. We'll be convening very soon. I have a calendar coming up for you that I'll show you in a minute here, but I know you all can read at this point, so I'll leave this up for a moment and let you look at this overview of our process. And we can provide this PowerPoint to you as well. All right, hopefully everybody's sped read. Evelyn Wood grads, I hope. Here's our rulemaking cycle coming up. We've got the EB task force starting in January. Run that out for 6 months, work with our consultants, hopefully have something to you summer, as we promised on our website, when we pull down EB4 because of the problems associated with it.
Hey, Kurt, this is Jeff Becker. Can I jump in for just a moment on the task force with a question?
Absolutely.
Have you determined who the task force will be comprised of yet?
We have.
Can you share?
I can. Hold on a second here. Let's see. Bear with me one moment. Do you want names or what the body of them are? Because I think it's fairest to give you what the body makeup is.
Yeah, that's fine.
Okay. The task force is going to be comprised of 4 architects, 1 from each region, DSA, region 1, 2, 3, and 4. 4 structural engineers, again, 1 from each region. 4 school district representatives, 1 from each region. 4 community college facility development representatives from each region. 1 rep from CASH, 1 rep from CCCO, and 1 general contractor. And that's the makeup we've got that we've created for the task force.
Thanks, Kurt. And there was a quick question that came in, just clarification that the EB4 in its current status would remain in place until the work of the task force is completed in 2024.
Correct. And I believe Doug Humphrey will be speaking to this next week. I think he has a cache function. He may speak to this as well next week. I know that he'll be speaking to the subject of the cross-laminated timber. Okay. Jeff, does that answer your question?
Yeah, it does. And then I'm seeing some AB 306 questions come back in. So maybe we'll let you go through the rest of your presentation and loop back around to some of those questions, Kurt.
Sure. So this is our rulemaking schedule. It's actually the Building Standards Commission's intervening code cycle rulemaking. And this is just to give you a heads up of some of the stuff that'll be going on. I think CASH does an excellent job of participating and representing. I know that this calendar is on their calendar as well. And so more of an advisory or for you to know. All right. DSA Academy. Always encourage you folks to go online, take a look at our resource page, go to our academy. There's a lot of good learning opportunity there for existing staff at the districts, new staff at the districts. And for those of you that have trouble with your PIs, send them here, find them a home where they can learn. And then, as I mentioned previously about the electric kitchen seminar, you can find that there. And then we'll have that EBCS training coming up that I mentioned will be a requirement in 2023. And you might be well advised to have staff or your design professionals aware of that, so that, as I said before, they can stay abreast when you're doing your design considerations for new projects. Last slide, subscribe, get on our listserv, stay aware, stay informed, don't be surprised. And that's all I have. So,
all right, thanks. Before you close out of the presentation there, can you back up to slide 10, which was the housing slide? And just wanted to get some clarification regarding that. I believe you said that those projects do come through DSA for review. I just noticed the first bullet refers those to the local jurisdiction. So just want to make sure that we're giving a clear message for our members, and what the, if a project could go to either one of those, what would be the defining characteristics of that?
Okay, I misspoke. They can come to DSA. Even a private school can come to DSA. If parochial schools can come to DSA if they want. Our concern is that, candidly, we don't know that the locals will be able to provide the level of review that we provide. I'm going to be very blunt. I don't think that they're as well versed as our staff when it comes to access requirements. And so maybe I'm pushing DSA here again, but I'm not in the chat room, so I think I'm okay. But I think if anybody knows Chapter 11B, it's DSA. So maybe I got ahead of myself there. I apologize, but yeah.
No need to apologize, Kurt. We just wanted to make sure that we had clarity on that issue.
Now, I will tell you something that has come up in the past, I've been told, is that the locals don't want to do the review. I can't say that's true for every jurisdiction because there are so many, but it might be something worth exploring beforehand, is to see if the local is even willing to do the review.
All right, thanks for that clarification, Kurt. And I'm just taking one last glance at the chat section on my side just to make sure we covered everything. It looks like we did. So really appreciate you. It's always good to have you with us, Kurt, and thanks for sharing with DSA.
Certainly. Thank you for having me. It's always a pleasure.
All right, thanks again, Kurt. So our next presenter is Lisa Silverman with the Office of Public School Construction. Lisa, good to have you with us this morning. And I know we've got an SAB meeting coming up, and you've got some things to share with us about that. And I just happened to note, and maybe I'm a broken record for saying it, but some of the code changes and the green code, some of those things are real cost drivers for projects. And I know that the increase in grant amounts is one of the things that you have based on the CCI, and just thinking about how what we're building is changing as codes change, and wanting to make sure and always remind folks that, hey, we've got to figure out how to pay for that and keep the focus on our students in the classroom and the learning. So I'll jump off my soapbox now. Lisa, thanks again for being with us. I'll let you share with us the happenings at OPSC.
Yeah, all good topics. So Happy New Year. I think we're still in January, so I can officially say that. So hope everyone's doing well. And just wanted a great point that segue for Jeff and sharing about the CCI. I know RS Means obviously is driving some of those calculations still. So we are still waiting to have information shared with us at this point in time. So I don't have any updates just yet, but we understand last year was pretty volatile as far as a lot of inflationary factors, and they're doing their best to make sure that they have a full view of what's happening with those inflator factors. And so they're actually running the data out through December. So I really appreciate everyone's patience in this area. And if there isn't an opportunity to bring this forward because we don't have the data just yet, and I know our folks are anxiously waiting to see if we can do this, we will actually bring an item in February, if that is the case. So just realize that we're working with outside entities, and they're really validating some of these adjustments or changes in their cost indexes. So appreciate everyone's patience. Second item, I know Kurt touched on this, and just want to let you know, we have shared with folks that we have a tri-agency workshop, and we have 987 registered guests so far. So that's really great news for folks who are interested in the program and getting some information from Department of Education and DSA and OPSC. And then we're going to tap into the topic of full day kinder. And so it's a great opportunity for us to facilitate a joint agency workshop, and looking forward to getting some great feedback from our stakeholders. Of course, the big item for the agenda today is the $252.1 million that will be, the board will ask the board for take action on those apportionments. So general fund money, yeah, it's the first of its kind to have this different color money come our way. And so we're excited about taking that action in January. I know the deadlines to bring that action was actually the end of June. So super excited about moving this forward. And again, it's about 100 projects. And then realize that the timelines to submit a fund release request is April 26th of this year. And again, provide the fund release and all the other required documentation and the grant agreement, and you'll have access to the program funds. But these projects actually did submit a certification for the priority in funding. And so just to realize that we had over $671 million in requests, and those are prior unfunded approvals. So if they didn't have an opportunity to get funded with the $252 million in general fund and a little bit of allocation from the bond sources, you'll have an opportunity for the spring bond sale. So that's great news. And again, it's great news that we can push this out as quickly as possible. So that's great for this opportunity. And then just to highlight a few action items, today is the charter school filing round. We're asking the board to open a filing round starting on May 2nd and closing on June 3rd. And so far, we wanted to announce we have close to $95 million and program funds. And so we wanted to keep that filing round open for another 12 months once we receive the application. So that way, if there's additional residual funds that come in, those program projects or applications will have the opportunity for processing based on the scoring criteria. So again, great news. We haven't had a charter filing round open and since the initiation of Proposition 51, so it's a good opportunity to continue down this path. And again, it's bond resources and we need to use it. And then the big item is the full day kinder proposed amendments. Yeah, it's exciting to have that $490 million available. And again, we call it the expanded full day kinder program because obviously it includes California preschool and the transitional kindergarten also as part of the program. And with that, there was so many, I know we had great feedback from the stakeholders and the community. So it's great to get feedback and working again closely with our colleagues at CDE. And again, this is going to be an awesome opportunity. So we're asking the board to take in consideration the number of changes because we are expanding the program to include that as far as updates to our applications and expenditure reports and grant agreements. So those changes are being pushed forward. And again, we are asking the board to open up 2 filing rounds, one beginning April 1st and then closing April 30th of this year. And that will be $225 million. And then the subsequent round, the following year, April 1st of 2023, and then that closes on April 30th of 2023. And that will represent the residual funds that we have for the program. And again, it's an exciting opportunity, and so we're looking forward for the board to make and adopt those changes moving forward. So again, just a reminder, we actually have a few revs we just want to focus on today that will go up rather shortly. And it's a revision to the expenditure report item. I think there's some language that we missed. And then also, I believe that's attachment C, or excuse me, E. And then attachment C, there's also some language that we needed to add into the application funding form. So we wanted to make those quick revisions today. And so just an oversight on our part. So we wanted to present that rather quickly in a few hours. I would say probably within the next hour. And to that extent, that's the full day kinder proposal. And we're excited to share, last item is not an action item, it's just an annual update related to the program audits. Since 2017, the enactment of statute 41-24 requires local audits for program grants. And really, it's great news for the program. We have, Controller's Office has received 138 audit reports. There was a few of them that they're working out some details. They may have been a soft rejection, but that means they're still working with the local CPAs to perfect that report. But to some extent, 107 has been certified, which is great. And then we have projects that may have findings, but some of them are non-monetary findings. And so there's only 2 monetary findings that we wanted to report of only $16,000 of ineligible expenditures that were identified. So I would say in a grand scheme of things of $795 million that was audited, $16,000 is really just pennies. So it's a great opportunity to report back to the board that this facet of the program is working. And that means there's a lot of folks getting A's in their program audits. So that's great news for everybody. And again, we think the continued outreach opportunities and the grant agreements provide greater transparency, and also working with the stakeholder groups when it comes to revising the audit requirements and working with the CPA firms and districts. So again, we think it's a great opportunity to continue soft reviews as well. That provides another opportunity before you submit your final expenditure report. We can have some eyes on that and see if we can help districts identify if there's some maybe questionable expenses that may help you avoid an audit finding. Again, that's another level of service that we also provide. So that's it for today, and I want to open up for any questions.
All right, thanks, Lisa. I have to say regarding the audits, we worked together for a number of years on that, and it seems like districts and their teams are doing a great job of complying, and the availability of OPSC for those soft reviews and preliminary audits that school districts are doing really is paying some dividends, and it's good to see that there really aren't substantive findings coming out of it. So
Yeah,
kudos to
it's
the
exciting.
whole group there.
Right.
I just wanted to comment and ask you maybe a little bit about some of the general fund money, right? You know, we are excited to see some general fund money come into the program for facilities, and it looks like the governor's budget may have a bit more in coming years. We'll watch that and see what happens. In addition to next year, you know, the remainder of the Prop 51 dollars. So do you have good capacity to handle that at OPSC? You know, we're going to be processing maybe a higher dollar value of projects than we have in the past number of recent years.
Right. No, we actually do have the capacity. And the great thing about just what the governor, even what the governor's proposing, you know, we're still working ahead of time, right? So we have projects that we're processing in the new construction area with existing bond authority. And then, you know, our projections for mod with the existing bond authority, you know, takes us out to the fall. So that all works in tandem. Believe it or not, we'll be able to continue to process even this budget year, right? And then that takes us over to the subsequent budget year. So we're actually working ahead, as you may know, and that actually provides us some balances to processing those applications. So yeah, we don't think there's going to be a pinch point on our part, on our side of the fence. So, and again, we're going to keep staffing levels, at least the proposal is to keep the staffing levels the same. No, you know, redirection or no reduction in staff, just like we had in the prior years. So again, we think we definitely can meet the mark in processing general fund and continue to process the remaining bond authority.
Great. And one more question for you. Do you have any updates on the revision to the FIT, to the facility inspection tool? I know we had a really good stakeholder meeting earlier in the week, and Michael talked about having another one sometime in the future.
March 3rd, March 3rd from 4 to 6. That will be our next meeting. And then I know I wasn't around at the last FIT because I was on vacation, but yeah, I understand staff, it went well. But, you know, it's great to get feedback. And honestly, I mean, we value everyone's feedback when it comes to making changes to any side of the program. So again, we understand the conversation was great. And I know we're looking forward to get input from some key stakeholders, including from folks from school district communities. So again, we're waiting for that input. And, you know, it's never one and done. You know, it's always an opportunity for us to continue to work together and continue to move forward with some proposed changes, but I wouldn't say it's going to happen next month either. So it's good. It's good. It's still working to refine these things. Great ideas, though, and great suggestions.
Yeah, well, thank you for that, Lisa. And just I see a couple comments and questions in the chat, and I think that we talked a little bit about them. One was about the withdrawal of the grant and fee increase. I think that's what we talked about moving to the February meeting due to the lack of availability of data from RS means at this point.
Correct.
And assuming that those will, you know, obviously be retroed back to the appropriate time frame.
Yeah, and you know, if we're thinking moving ahead, say we present this item in February along with the developer fee index adjustment, I would say we would bring also the unfunded approvals as well with some proposed indices adjustments as well. So that way there won't be a lag in projects being presented to the board. So we will present the adjustment plus also the adjustments to the unfunded approvals. So again, that would be our workload moving forward.
All
so
right.
we don't skip a beat there.
All right. Well, thank you very much, Lisa, for being with us this morning. And we'll move on to our next group here. So I'd like to invite up Rebecca Curley, Nancy Charas Espinosa, and Ian Padilla. We'll go over some of the legislative, regulatory, and budget and maintenance related items. Seems like things are starting to come up with proposals. So lots to consider right now, even, you know, just hearing about 40 more and up to 80 more additional hours of COVID leave. So for those of us keeping our bus drivers and maintenance teams working, you know, there's a lot of things happening on that side as well. So looks like Nancy, you're going to go first.
Thank you, Jeff. Yeah, there's a lot going on in our world. So we're happy to bring you as much of that information as we can fit into this update today. So first, just to set a little bit of context, the bill introduction deadline is coming up next month, February 18th. Leadership is starting to spread the word again that they're not going to allow spot bills to advance. So typically you can have essentially what is a shell move along the process and put your wording in just before the committee hears the bill. But this year they're saying, there are so many complications with working in this COVID safe remote environment that they don't even want to deal with that. So that's really a continuation of what they've done the last couple of years. And honestly, it's a welcome development on the part of your advocacy team. So bill hearings will begin in March, but we are already reviewing all of the bills that are being introduced and bills that are being amended from prior years. So that's happening already. And we'll bring you more updates on that as soon as there's anything relevant to school facilities. And on the budget side, of course, the governor proposed or released his proposed budget. The Senate already started reviewing that. The Senate Budget Committee started reviewing that last week. The Assembly Budget Committee actually begins its work on that later today. After their main budget committees hold their overview hearings, the budget subcommittees in both houses will start to hold multiple hearings on their respective pieces of the state budget. So they will be discussing and debating the governor's proposals and advancing their own, of course. The Department of Finance will start to release trailer bill language, so the actual language of their proposals next week. So that will, of course, answer a lot of our questions as advocates and allows us to engage a little bit more meaningfully in the process. So stay tuned for that. I know Rebecca's going to give you a lot more detail on the TK part of this. I want to give you a little bit more information about the potential ramifications of the budget proposals on the school facilities program and maybe the bond. So the governor did propose some general fund funding one time for the school facilities program, which we are really pleased to see, I have to say. We know that there is an ongoing continuous need for school facilities funding. So to have a general fund appropriation, I think is an acknowledgement of that, and we really appreciate it. In his comments at the presser, the governor mentioned that this could be kind of a way to buy some time for him to have some discussion with legislative leaders about the timing of the next school bond, implying, do we need a 22? Could it be a 24 or later? But in order to answer that, really many questions remain. So it's too early kind of to pick one track versus another. First off, the amount that was proposed isn't sufficient to cover the acknowledged list as it stands currently, let alone the approximately 1 billion per year in applications that would be submitted each year if we were to push out a bond. So, that's a problem we would have to address right away. We also need to see if the administration is going to want to make any programmatic changes to the school facilities program, as they did with the language that they inserted late in AB 48, which became the defeated Proposition 13. Later this week, tomorrow actually, the Bureau of State Audits is going to release its report that it did of the school facilities program at the request of the Joint Legislative Audit Committee. So this is exploring those same questions about equity in the modernization program. So that conversation is continuing this year, and it is our expectation that that will kind of bleed over into the budget conversation and the bond conversation. It is very much, I think, the intent, it's fair to say, of the folks who are advancing that argument. For us, it's very important to draw the line to say that the issue, while there is certainly room for improvement in the modernization program, and we have been advocates of that for a very long time, the real issue here is scarcity. We don't want to set up a system that presumes that we will always underfund school facilities, and therefore we have to restrict access to who can get those dollars. So we are going to continue to push back on any attempt to set up a framework that locks in scarcity, that attempts to justify keeping school facilities underfunded. So anything that is part of a plan to minimize the state's obligation to ensure that students have adequate places to learn is a red flag for us. And we think, perhaps unwittingly, some of these advocates are buying into that notion that the state cannot fulfill its obligation to California students. And that's just something that we reject on principle. So the AB 75, Mr. O'Donnell's bill, working group continues to advance, and we collectively agreed to pursue these parallel tracks, meaning we are continuing to work on that bond bill and we are continuing to advance on this budget track. And the reason for that is that the deadlines are virtually the same. There's like a 2-week difference. So it would be, if we had only picked one, we wouldn't have time to switch tracks, so to speak. So as a group, the AB 75 stakeholders are working on programming, on proposing how we would allocate that 10 billion that is in the budget for K-12 facilities, or K-14, yet to be determined. And it's early days, so we don't have anything to report on that. But just wanted you to make you aware that we are covering all of our bases. And with respect to advancing a bond versus school facilities, there are many factors to consider. There are many questions that still remain that will be revealed in the course of the next few months. And it's too soon to limit ourselves to one approach or another. So generally speaking, that is where we stand. And that is all I have for the cash update. So I would be happy to pass it along to my colleague, Rebecca, so she could tell you a little bit more about budget.
Thank you, Nancy. I did want to talk a little bit about transitional kindergarten and where we are in the budget proposal that the governor released earlier this month. He did not propose any specific funding for TK facilities as part of his budget proposal. So last year in 2021, we had the 490 million. We'll talk about that again in a second. The governor's not proposing to add additional money specifically for facilities. He does talk in his budget proposal about the next step to implement universal TK on the operational side. So he's proposing 639.2 million to expand eligibility in 22-23 to that first group of new TK kiddos. So those kids turning 5 between September 2nd and February 2nd would be eligible for TK beginning in 22-23. So that could mean new kids as soon as this fall in 2022. He's also proposing 309 million to add an educator to every TK class. So this is trying to make progress toward getting that adult to child ratio down in your TK classrooms. The goal that has been established for TK is 10-1. That only goes into effect if there is funding to support that. So this is a payment towards getting to that goal. Nancy mentioned and actually just to close the loop on the funding, Cash is requesting $2 billion general fund appropriation in this budget for TK facilities. So we're bringing that forward, doing advocacy with the legislature and others to help support that funding. And that would complement any funding that we receive in a future bond for school facilities as well. Nancy mentioned the AB 75 stakeholder working group. There is a subset of that group that is working on TK and what it looks like in a general fund appropriation, what it would look like, how we incorporate TK as a grade level into the school facility program as well. There are enrollment projection issues there that need to be ironed out. There's the chargeability issue if you're adding a locally funded TK facilities, whether or not they affect your school facility program eligibility in the K-6 grade level category. So we're providing recommendations to Assemblymember O'Donnell and his staff and our other colleagues as we're working on the bond and what should go into that bond. As far as the regulations for the $490 million program, so those are going to the State Allocation Board tonight to kick off the first cycle of funding under that program. If you remember, that's a preschool, transitional kindergarten, and full day kindergarten facilities grant program. And there was 490 million provided last year in 2021. The first cycle would open up this April if these regulations are approved tonight. And that would be for 225 million. The remainder would be allocated in a funding cycle that would open up next year in April of 2023. Some of the items that ended up in that final package of regulations through the stakeholder engagement that OPSC led were things like we can do centralized early learning sites. So you could pool and have multiple TK or preschool classrooms on one site and draw students from the broader region. So that was a really positive outcome to see in the regulations. There was conversations about the enrollment data and how do you project forward that there will be TK kiddos that aren't currently there. So that will be done on an average of your first, second, and third grade enrollments in this process for TK and preschool, since those kiddos aren't on site yet. Construction contracts. So what types of projects would be eligible for full day kindergarten? So just full day kindergarten, contracts need to be signed after June, on or after June 27th, 2018. So that's a recognition of folks who had submitted projects in the first round, which was $100 million for full day kinder. If they weren't funded in that round, they're still eligible to continue pursuing funds in this new round. And then for preschool and TK projects, your contracts need to be signed on or after July 9th of 2021. That date aligns with when the trailer bill to implement the program went into effect. So back to this past summer. The last thing that I want to mention here is that an issue related to portable classrooms. So portable classrooms are not eligible to be purchased with program funds for new construction projects in this preschool TK full day K facilities grant program. That is something that's actually in the statute, and that was written in by the legislature into the law. Portables can be retrofitted through the program, but that is something to be aware of. So those regulations, again, are going to the State Allocation Board tonight, and Cash will send out an update after that meeting to let you know about the conversation and the approval of those regulations. Connecting to what I just mentioned about portables, I did want to also bring up an issue on piggyback contracts. So there isn't a mention of a future item in the State Allocation Board agenda. It's an item that is agendized for February, so the next meeting on the workload list. And it's an item that is titled Piggyback Contracts and Public Contract Code Compliance related to permanent modular school facilities. And this is under reports, discussions, and information items. So we're anticipating this conversation coming up to the State Allocation Board next month. Cash previously sent out a communication talking about DGS guidance that was provided this past year, warning school districts that acquisition of modular portable classrooms by Piggyback may not be legal and may be questioned in future audits. So we are excited about how positive the audits have been, as Lisa mentioned previously, but schools were warned that this could be an issue in future audits if they continued to procure permanent modular school facilities. At that time, Cash indicated that we disagreed with this interpretation, that these classrooms are factory manufactured personal property. And the DGS communication was pointing to a 15-year-old Attorney General opinion on the topic that referred to a permanent foundation and immovability of structures, though those terms weren't defined in the opinion. So we're just bringing this forward to you to let you know that we're aware that this item may be discussed in February, that we will continue to keep you updated as our Cash members on where the conversation is going. And in conversation with Tom Duffy, your Cash legislative director, about this issue, I know that he's concerned that a decision that may be generated by the connection between portable classrooms and what is happening in our transitional kindergarten facilities. So that's the nexus here with why this is coming up, is we know districts are needing to quickly add facilities, that if there's a narrowing of the aperture on what facilities may be funded by the state program for TK that's being kicked off by that, we are concerned that that narrowing could be extended to the broader school facility program, to our new construction, our modernization programs. So stay tuned. We're going to continue to monitor, and we'll keep you updated on the conversation. Last thing that I want to mention is Nancy said that we are tracking bill introductions. There's one bill that I just quickly wanted to bring forward to you all today. It's AB 902 by Assemblymember O'Donnell. It's a bill that is being sponsored by Los Angeles Unified School District. And it is a bill that's a little bit complicated, but I wanted to get it on your radar. So what the bill does is it creates an alternative design build procurement option that would operate separately from the current design build authorization and statute. And what would be in this alternative design build is something that looks a lot like progressive design build, which we've talked about in the past. And there are a couple of sessions coming up at the CASH conference about it, where you can learn more about what progressive is. Essentially, you select your design build entity using best value, and then you're able to negotiate your guaranteed maximum price a little bit later in the design process, once you've got a better sense of what that design is, and you lock in that price later in the process. There are some school districts that are currently doing this, and we're concerned that AB 902 may actually prevent those who are currently doing it from continuing to do it. Reason being that AB 902 was recently amended in January. So this is a 2-year bill, meaning that this is the second year where it is trying to move through the legislative process. It was amended to specify that this alternative process that looks a lot like progressive design build or open book procurement would only be available to districts that have more than 50,000 ADA and for projects that are more than $10 million. Those limitations don't currently exist in the statute. So want you to know that we're watching it. We've got concerns, and we are working with the author to bring those concerns forward. We hope that we won't have to formally oppose the bill, and that we'll be able to work this out without opposition, but we are willing to go there if we need to. But what I do want to ask is, if you are working with a district, or you are a district that is using progressive design build currently, so adjusting that guaranteed maximum price later in the process in a design build, that you reach out to me and share your story, because I'm trying to bring forward stories from districts who are currently using it and enjoying that flexibility. So with that, I know that was a lot to throw at you today. I did want to welcome up my colleague, Ian. Thank you, Ian.
Thank you, Rebecca. Excellent, comprehensive update as usual. So as you can see, obviously, there is a lot going on in Sacramento now, and in particularly in the school facilities and maintenance world. As you know, I'm going to focus a little bit on the maintenance world, what's going on, and some of the things the Cash Maintenance Network are doing. One, and it was discussed a little bit, and thank you, Jeff, for bringing it up with Ms. Silverman, the OPSC's effort to update the facility inspection tool as required in SB 129. The second hearing was last Thursday, the 20th, lasted a couple of hours. And I will say, I think it was a very good discussion, as both Ms. Silverman and Jeff mentioned. OPSC basically is gathering input from stakeholders as they are in the process of updating the FIT. So without getting into a lot of particulars, a lot of the conversation and discussion centers around some of the proposals for new cleaning standards, and then certainly the appropriateness of the FIT for essentially accounting for maintenance staff. There's been some discussion of that in the stakeholder meetings, and so there was a robust discussion about that. I will say, in particular, I think the school district folks who are participating with OPSC in this effort I think are doing a particularly good job. There's a lot of informed discussion, making sure that the school district and maintenance side is recognized here to basically meet the goal. How can this tool continue to be a good tool? Because we think it's a good tool. It should be remain within its original intent, not do more than it's designed to do. And so we think we're having a good discussion about that at the policy level and look forward to continuing to engage with OPSC and other stakeholders on it, excuse me. Also, and I believe, I think it's been mentioned, the next meeting is March 3rd, and OPSC before that is definitely open to input from stakeholders, particularly school districts. We think there's been good representation, but if you have something that you think can add to this conversation, improve the FIT document, by all means, we highly encourage you to contact OPSC about that. They're encouraging stakeholders to do that. So a couple other things that are being discussed, maybe different ways the weighting formula could be perfected. The proposal may be to use letter grades in addition to, instead of the current, poor, fair, good, exemplary. And also there's been recommendations from the field for the possibility of a state level electronic fit. And so all those some of the things that are in the discussion, we look forward to the next meeting. So if you have any other questions about that, definitely contact myself or others in CASH. The last part, very quickly, and this relates to all this, I wanted to do a little push for the maintenance network programming at the annual conference, that's coming up. We have our breakfast, we have our reception and trade show, which, by the way, we have some spots open. If folks are available and they want to set up a booth for that, contact myself or Eileen Dolan on that. And then, of course, we have a variety of workshops and programming, trainings, and so on. I'm doing a lot of folks are doing that, all focused on a lot of the implications for M&O that you've heard today in the state budget, some of the green code, all those things have implications in addition to facilities for M&O. And of course, the CMN focuses on that. And so we encourage you, if you're at the conference, to look up that programming. Also, a pitch for, we have all of our advocates, everyone you saw today, as well as Jennifer Baker, will be doing a workshop called Hot Topics and in Budget and Advocacy. And that's in many ways a follow-up to where all these issues you're hearing today. You'll hear more about that during the conference, and that'll be pretty key, we think, because a lot will happen between now and then. So look us up there as well. So with that, I'm going to pass it over back to Jeff, and we'll keep our program going. Thank you.
All right, thanks, Ian, and thank you, Rebecca. And Nancy, I'll invite you to come back up. Do you have an update for the School Energy Coalition?
Do I ever? Of course. Yeah, this situation is so incredibly fluid. For those of you keeping track, the California Public Utilities Commission omitted from its January 27th agenda the item that we were all anticipating, which was adoption of their Net Energy Metering 3.0 proposed decision, which would have virtually eliminated future solar projects on school campuses. So the School Energy Coalition, along with many partners, has been advocating against that decision. And many thanks to all of the school districts and others who participated in our advocacy efforts. They worked just to show you that it makes a difference. Thank you so much for sharing the impact. And where we are now is that the School Energy Coalition actually has a meeting with the CPU president next week. We're reaching out to the governor's office. We're continuing to work with our partners in this space. Our ask is that schools be able to remain in the NEM 2.0 tariff, which was not overly generous, right? We certainly couldn't characterize it that way. If it had been such a giveaway to schools, we would have more than 10% of schools in the state with solar right now. So the economics are already difficult. We really can't accept anything that's going to make it more difficult. So that's a conversation we'll be having. And please stay tuned to School Energy Coalition going forward so that we can keep you up to date on those developments. We have a budget ask. We're in conversation with all of the budgeteers in the legislature to procure general fund apportionments for grants to LEAs for solar and storage, as opposed to the loan mechanism that we've been relying on. We have a surplus. One-time funds, a great use of one-time funds is infrastructure, especially an investment in California's carbon neutral future. So we are working on sizing that so that they can kind of get a sense of what they're quote unquote buying, right? So can we go from 10% to 20%, 25%? How aggressive do they want to be with their investment in helping schools be part of this clean air solution? And lastly, I wanted to also plug the School Energy Coalition's workshop at the CASH conference. We will be doing what is called a mini workshop. So it's kind of a quick and dirty conversation on challenges and solutions to solar and electric vehicle installations. That will be in the same room and immediately prior to the SEC meeting that is going to take place at the CASH conference, in which we'll have an even broader conversation on more of the issues of the many things that are going on in this space right now. So we sure hope that you can join us at the CASH conference for both of those. And that is all I have, Jeff.
All right, thanks a lot for that, Nancy. Yeah, we're all kind of on the edge of our seats for the NEM 2.0, 3.0 discussion and keeping solar as a viable option for schools. So thank you for the work of SEC on that. But I think several of our presenters mentioned we do have a conference coming up. Yes, we have an in-person conference. So Alan Rising, our vice chair, joining me on the screen. Alan, share with us the great happenings we're going to partake in.
Yes, Jeff, thank you. Yeah, we're excited. The 43rd Annual Conference on School Facilities is set to kick off in just 4 short weeks from today, Wednesday. So Wednesday, the 23rd through the 25th at the Safe Credit Union Convention Center in Sacramento. There's information available on our CASH website if you have not already registered. If you're interested in joining our golf tournament, there are still some very limited opportunities for some exhibitors and sponsorships to look at that if you're interested in that. And if you're looking for hotel accommodations, we still have information about availability of some rooms in the Sacramento area to be able to attend our conference. So really no excuse to not be there. We will be having the conference. I'll talk a little bit more about that in just a moment. We're excited that our keynote speaker is going to be Assemblymember O'Donnell, that will be coming up and giving us an update on the status of the 2022 school bond effort, the 2 different bonds and the work that's happening at the state level to reconcile that into a comprehensive bond effort. In addition to that, we will be getting an update from our School Facilities Research Institute on the first doctoral project and the completion of that, the information that they've been able to glean from the research that they did. Fascinating research that really shows us some things that we've kind of intuitively known over the years, and also shows us opportunities to continue research moving forward to really prove that link between educational outcomes and quality of our facilities. So that's exciting to hear the work that's happening at our School Facilities Research Institute. In addition to that, as Nancy had mentioned, there are a host of workshops, mini workshops, clinics addressing just a host of important topical ideas, topical issues that are going to be happening, that are happening throughout our industry. Great educational opportunities as well as networking, all of those things happening. There has been some discussion about happening. I mean, we are still in the midst of a COVID pandemic. And so today, there will be some health and safety guidelines that will be sent out to all registered attendees and exhibitors. CASH has always, and we will continue to follow all of the guidelines from our local health department in Sacramento related to how we administer that the event. One thing of note, when you're coming up to the event, you will need to bring proof of vaccination or negative COVID tests in order to be allowed entrance into the conference. That's one notable change this year that is required by our local health agencies. And as always, the health and safety of all of our attendees and exhibitors is of utmost importance to CASH, and we'll make sure that we are following all of those guidelines. So look for that information to be coming to you today to give you a little bit more details related to the requirements to attend our show. So again, more information available on our Cash Annual Conference website. Please take a look at that. And we are looking forward and excited to see everybody in Sacramento this year. So with that, Jeff, I'll turn it back over to you.
All right, thanks a lot, Alan. Thanks for all of your hard work on that. And I'll just emphasize, be on the lookout for that email with the COVID protocols that we'll all be following at the conference, just to make sure that we keep safety at the forefront. So our next segment is just a discussion with some of our school district practitioners on their COVID-19 reopening experience. This has been a great series of presentations over the past couple of years now. And great way to share ideas and learn how our colleagues are handling the pandemic. So I'm excited today to have Sam Precy with us. Sam is with the San Bernardino City School District, and he's going to share with us about their reopening experience and just what they're going through right now. Sam, thanks so much for joining us.
Yeah, thank you, Jeff, and welcome everybody in the cash world. I appreciate being here and sharing what we've done within the San Bernardino City Unified School District. I've presented in a couple other cash events on some items that we've implemented. So in this particular segment, what I'm going to look at is some items that are going to be long-standing additions. And so one of the items I first wanted to talk about was establishing customer expectations. And in order to do that effectively, one item that we looked at was, well, what's our existing communication tool that we have? So we wound up implementing a new communication tool which utilizes multiple streams of communications through one interface, which allows us to either select a particular school, the whole district, a certain grade level, and share information very quickly just with a couple of clicks, attach some documents, and off it goes. So whether it's information about testing, where we're having our testing sites, what's the requirements for students to return back to school sites if they're positive, or if they're presenting symptoms, what's the masking requirements, because we always have those individuals that are pushing that envelope, and any other COVID related adjustments to some of our school procedures and processes. I think one of our latest ones was the removal of our temperature scanners from our school sites and sharing that information out well in advance of actually doing that. So this new communication tool, and if for those folks that have school districts out there that you're looking for something, there are tools out there. If you're interested, let me know. I can point you in some particular directions that we looked at. Another thing, as we all, as COVID had evolved, was the improvements in indoor air quality and the importance of indoor air quality. So what we did is we invested in medical grade HEPA air scrubber units, and those went inside every single one of our 4,300 classrooms and offices and occupied spaces. So when people returned back to the school sites, they knew well in advance, utilizing that communication tool, all the different items that we've adjusted within the school sites, modified in the school sites, but mainly the HEPA air scrubbers, because we really focused on the importance of indoor air quality. We perform pre and post air quality testing to record effectiveness, and we figure it's going to be about an additional $350,000 in increase for HVAC related maintenance costs, replacement of extra filters in those HEPA units, the maintenance staff time to actually perform that. So although it's the right thing to do, it's a value add to the organization, it is yet another further incursion on our already strained restricted maintenance account. But it is the right thing to do. So if you have any existing ESSER dollars out there, or if your CBO is going to come to you and say that services are unable to spend as much as they wanted, so here's a couple extra million, take a look at HEPA if you haven't looked at it yet. And I'll tell you, that's one of the best things we did for our school sites. Our union partners love the facilities team for implementing that. The other thing that COVID really highlighted was the importance of clean and disinfected classrooms. That really elevated the importance of our custodial ranks and the structure that's in place to oversee and to support the custodial ranks. So one thing we looked at from a district perspective is that we had site custodians that reported to the local sites, and we had a centralized custodial team, a smaller contingent that reported here to maintenance and operations. So what we did is we wound up transitioning all site custodians to M&O oversight, One reason we did that is because of the importance of clean and disinfected classrooms, but we also wanted to implement a uniform expectation and support in the delivery of services to our customers. So when we're saying we're going to have this stuff done, we wanted to make sure that we had, if we're going to be held accountable, the ability to actually make that happen. So we transitioned all site custodians to M&O. All of that was performed just after we opened up school sites because we wanted to make sure all of our customers were part of that whole process. And in addition to that, we're also creating a custodial handbook. It's going to standardize and communicate what the expectations of all the custodial requirements are going to look like. And on top of that, we also increased our support structure because we know having everybody report to M&O is great, but if you don't have the actual reporting structure in place to support that, you're going to fail. So what we looked at is we actually increased the number of custodial supervisors that we have. So each one of our 8 supervisors have about 10 school sites that they manage and all the custodial staff that comes along with it. The other important thing is our custodians are now mobile. So before they would report to their elementary and they would stay there, or they would go to their high school and the whole set of 11 to 12 custodians would stay at that high school. Meanwhile, a middle school could be suffering from call-offs and they won't have any custodians. So what we did is when we implemented the ability and transitioned all the site custodians to M&O, we actually added in there and worked with our union partners to say, okay, they're now going to be mobile. So if we have a need from here to there, we're going to be able to do that and not have any issues. So, and all of that was through communication and setting the expectations well in advance. We also implemented a new inspection process. We call it a 5-star inspection, but it's tied to custodial and supervisor performance evaluations. And we kind of talked about that just before the meeting started. But that's a new inspection process that we've added into our custodial ranks. Everybody was a part of that process, our union officials. We actually brought in a group of custodians. I think it was about 50 or so that were part of the creation of that and got everyone's feedback and created a inspection tool that we're now rolling out. Excuse me. We're also looking at, and you guys have probably seen this in the news, but a Minnesota high school district are actually looking to have some students perform some custodial. So we're looking at that, because we're experiencing call-offs just as I'm sure everyone else out there is. So we have about 80 to 90 custodians that are calling off on a daily basis related to COVID. So what does that do? Well, that puts a strain on our sub-custodians, but we're not able to fill all those vacancies with their sub-custodians. We have custodians on overtime, but then you have employee burnout. And then we have our centralized system, which is going out and performing emergency runs at all the different sites. So what we're looking at now is we're working with our Personnel Commission and our Human Resources Department. In fact, I just got an email from them a little while ago saying we're moving forward, which is great news. So we're actually going to start recruiting some of our high school students. As soon as they get out of school, they're going to be working for our maintenance and operations team, and we're going to start dispatching them at all the different school sites to start helping us out with some of our custodial needs. So hopefully we have some interest with that from our high school students. The other thing that we implemented was our COVID case management, and we utilize a third-party COVID case management firm. And that, I think, is another feather in our cap. But we've talked to other school districts and they're trying to manage it themselves. And for those that are trying to manage it themselves, you understand that it's, especially with these COVID cases going out of control, it's extremely tasking and time consuming. I mean, the contact tracing, the positive case communication requirements, and overseeing all the isolation rooms, making sure that all the required safety equipment and processes with the student movements are being maintained. It's all time. So we relieved our school sites from having to worry about that burden by bringing in this other firm, and now they're managing all that for us, which is fantastic. And they've really helped with our COVID dashboard and communication of all of our COVID numbers, as well as the distribution of all of our test kits. So those are just some of the things that we've implemented here at San Bernardino City that we felt were best case that I'd like to share out with some of the other school districts out there. If you have some available ESSER funds, look at utilizing some of these things because everything I just mentioned qualifies for ESSER. This way you relieve yourself as far as not burdening your general fund. But that's what I have to share today. Thank you.
Sam, thanks so much for sharing with us this morning, I guess this afternoon now. I appreciate that you shared a lot about the the people side of what we do and working with our custodial teams to make sure that we have good, clear expectations and structures set up so they can be successful. Certainly has been a key thing, and the challenge and your creative way of looking at high school students. I'm sure people are going to be very interested in seeing how that rolls out and maybe trying to replicate that in their own district. So really, thank you so much for sharing with us this morning.
Welcome.
All right, just to wrap up our program here, I want to make sure that everyone's aware of the CASH website and the ability to have a job exchange and people's choice section in there, if you will, where you can post your RFP and RFQs and job listings. I know that this works. I've done it myself with RFQs, and really allows you to reach a broad audience within the CASH family. So make sure that you check that out and get your items posted there, and check it often for opportunities that come up. So with that, Courtney, if you take us to the last slide. So our next CASH day is going to be March 23rd. Notice that we're off because we're together for the annual conference in February. So do get your calendars marked for a couple of months out on the 23rd from 11 to 12:15. Thank you so much for spending some time this morning with us. I hope it's been valuable for you. I know it has for me. And I wish everyone on the call a great day. Take care, everyone.
Thank you, Jeff. Have a great day, everyone.